national curriculum on social studies. Here's what we're going to teach about the Constitution. Here's what we're going to teach about climate change. Here's what we're going to teach about literature. Can you see this being a political football that becomes a prize to the victor goes the spoils? Both conservative administrations, progressive administrations could kind of see this as a prize that could be fought over in coming decades, back and forth on curriculum?
Yeah, look, let me be very clear. This is not a partisan nor ideological issue for me. I wouldn't give this power to Reagan. I wouldn't give this power to Bush. I wouldn't give this power to anybody at that level, because I believe decisions about children should be made closest to them, by their parents, by their teachers, by their principals, by their locally elected school boards. So, and you talked about the politicization of it. In the first round of the secondary math standards, they had a class called modeling, which is normally a bridge between Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. And the only standard originally listed was the student will be able to use charts and graphs, for instance, CO2 emissions and global temperatures over time. That was the only standard listed in the first draft. So I think that you've injected the issue of global warming into that math class. And you may think that's a fine analysis, and it may very well be a fine analysis. But who's to say who gets to choose the next example? And the example in Texas of a social studies curriculum that portrayed the Boston Tea Party as a terrorist act and said a group of terrorists went on private property and destroyed a bunch of private property, much to the chagrin of their owners, and were helped by hoodlums in the neighborhood escape in the night. That's how the Boston Tea Party was portrayed in a lesson plan.
And Mr. Chairman, I just asked the question, Mr. Chairman, because on either side of the political spectrum, I just have concerns that politicizing, the idea of control of curriculum could be a control of ideas, and we've got enough fights in Washington. We don't need to fuel that by a national attack on curriculum. That just gives me some.
And be clear, that last example was not from the Common Core. That was from someone in my home state that had misused our curriculum. So I want to be very clear. I was not ascribing that. I was ascribing that to folks in my place that had done that improperly. And so I think that regardless of your administration, regardless of your state, there are opportunities for shenanigans in these type of arenas.
Thank you. Number 9, whoever that may be. Chairman Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my situation, I have an amazing Air Force base in my community. How would you solve the issue of students coming in and out of the state of Georgia from other states without Common Core, when we're trying to get kids to where they're up to speed when they walk into our schools and they have come from somewhere else?
Sure. Look, I had no problem with states actively collaborating, working together, making comparable standards, and truly collaborating. I was one of the first 7 states to join the American Diploma Project, which actually sought to make sure that our high school graduation standards were consistent or higher than other states. We joined the Military Compact for Student Education to make sure that when military families came to our state, we had a transition plan for those mobile students so that they didn't fall behind. So I think there are plenty of ways that you can help mobile student populations without having to cede control. And as I said, common item development. You could reduce costs immensely for assessment and enable states to make very valid comparisons about student performance and an understanding of what's going on in other states by having a common item bank. It would be cheaper for states, and they could embed those items in their state assessments, and we can make valid comparisons with the NAEP assessment as a quality check against all of it. So things that already exist and systems that are already in place, and with a little true collaboration among states, I think we could address that concern quite well.
I promised Dr. Scott this segment would be over at 2:30. I think we have about 5 minutes. Senator James, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I guess this question is for you. I don't see a bill before us that addresses what he's talking about. Are we going to vote on whether we accept Common Core's basic strategies, or will that be the Board of Education? I mean, I don't understand why he's speaking before us and taking all this time.
Because I think Common Core is a very big issue coming before education in the state of Georgia and the United States as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are here as the respective committees of education in both houses of the legislature, and the bills that come before us, I think we need to consider it. I know we have a lot of new members, on both of the education committees of the respected houses. And I think from an educational standpoint, this meeting today, we have 3 other speakers scheduled to come. None of them have to do with a particular bill, but talking about different facets of education. And this is more of an educational setting than advocating for or against a bill.
Okay, are we going to have someone who speaks for Common Core to come before us as well?
I have no problem with that at all.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Miller?
Can I follow Senator James on that?
Absolutely.
I think it would make a lot of sense after this presentation. It was very well done, too, I might add, that we have Kristen Bernard from the governor's office speak why we are in Common Core. We've got at least 46 states. I think they're still involved with it. And I know people like the Southern Regional Education Board, the Georgia Partnership, they support it. So I think the department obviously supports it. I see Martha Reichworth back there. But I would suggest we have Kristen Bernard come and make a presentation of why we're in this, so we have both sides of the issue, if that would be all right down the road.
I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. Quite frankly, I don't think there's any question about whether the DOE was going to support this, and I think sometime if you have open and honest discussion of both sides, you're probably going to have another side coming from outside of the establishment and the system, and I think it's good, and as we consider different areas, to have a full spectrum of discussion. That's my purpose of having Dr. Scott here today, and he was on a very short time frame. Do we have any other questions? We have about 2 minutes. If not, Dr. Scott, thank you for spending 30 minutes with us. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In just one closing statement, I will acknowledge that I was asked to be here on short notice, and I appreciate that. But my purpose here is not to tell you what to do. I respect your right as a state to make decisions about your children. I simply bring my perspective of a state who said no and paid a price. And I just wanted to give you my experience and my understanding of the law and the federal law and why this was done and why it's happening the way it is and the repercussions that are coming, because I simply say the bills are coming to you. And so I simply just want to be able to say to you now before it happens, so that when it happens, someone will have said it to you before you get the bill. That's my purpose here.
Senator Setzler. Representative Setzler. Just got a promotion.
Is it true that federal law today prohibits there from being a national curriculum?
Yes, the department is prohibited in 3 separate federal laws from being involved, and they're creating a national curriculum.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all very much. I enjoyed my time here.
Thank you. The next segment of our joint meeting this afternoon. Pardon? Again, I want to welcome you all here for the joint meeting of the House and Senate Education Committees. The second portion of our segment of our meeting this afternoon, we've asked 3 different speakers to come in. Dr. Jody Barrow from Ware County Schools, Dr. Chuck Ledbetter from Dublin City Schools, and Dr. Robert Avosa from Fulton County Schools. The last 2 school systems that I mentioned are charter systems. Dr. Barrow, I think, brings a perspective of some of the districts in outstate Georgia who may have some not unique challenges, but challenges that are quite typical in rural parts of Georgia, and we want to hear from him about the creative ways that he has dealt with it, and also some of the challenges that he faces in how state law, as we look at changes in state law, I guess areas of what your greatest need is and how the state can help you accomplish your needs in your particular district. Dr. Barrow, I'll welcome you to our meeting, and
that's Chuck Ledbetter.
That's okay.
Can Chuck go first?
Either way you want it to be.
Dealer's choice. Dr. Avosa is going to go last because he had a conflict in getting here. He'll be here about 3:30.
Okay.
But Dr. Ledbetter, if you'd like to come, go ahead.
I appreciate it. I thank you for the opportunity to come before you and to talk just a little bit. I know one of the particular issues that y'all were interested in hearing is some of the barriers and overcoming some of those barriers in education in the state. And I have to say, anytime I get a chance to talk about education, I'm an old history teacher, and I always have to kind of start a little bit with a little bit of history, just because I think it makes sure we're all on the same page. We understand we're talking about the same things. So I do start off talking about the purpose of education and making sure we understand. I mean, I think it's clear, but sometimes we forget some of the purposes or what the purpose really is, and that it is a three-part purpose: to prepare our students to be able to earn a living, and to be able to support their families, to be able to be law-abiding citizens, to be able to go and vote and understand the process and not just go and pull a lever because they know their family, and to also equip them for a full and quality life. And a quick history lesson, like I say, that I can't get away from the history. Public education goes back in this country actually to before it was public. It was started by the Puritans and the Congregationalists in the 1600s. And public education was advocated strongly by our founding fathers. I'm not going to read the list of some of those names to you, but as I was not originally from Georgia, I came here and I was reading some old history books and was amazed to see that our founders of this state in 1785, as they set up the government and they decided what you had to do to be able to vote, what you had to do to be able, how long was the state legislature going to be in session, all those kind of things. They also said they needed to set up a public school in each county paid for by the state. So public education of this state goes back to the founding of the state. And one other thing that comes up a lot, we often get a little confused as we look at public education today and we say, okay, what's our situation and why are we where we are? And we hear a lot about failing public schools. So, we talk a lot about the good old days, and let's talk about when they were. And if you look at the census data, which I think is actually far more credible than any formula for graduation rate, because census data does actually talk to, touch every household. You look at census data for those 25 and older who have a high school diploma over the last 50 years, and you can see the numbers and the difference. Now, one other thing that comes up, and I'm always quick to point out, talking with my father, for example, when he graduated from high school, what he had to know to graduate was about the same thing my 7th graders have to know to get to 8th grade, with the exception of Latin. Times have changed. We're teaching more. We're teaching more students. We're getting more through. But we also know that the world has changed and that what we used to do is not okay. It's not enough. And the fact that we're better than we've ever been is not enough also, because there used to be plenty of jobs. We know there were agricultural jobs. There were jobs. I cut pulpwood one summer when I was in high school. Let me know real quick. I wanted to get an education. Those jobs are gone. There's a few guys with skidders and big trucks, but most of those guys on a pulpwood truck, slinging a chainsaw are gone. Textile mills, taught and coached in a school where everybody worked in the textile mill, even if they were going to college. The job, that was in 1995. Those jobs are gone now. They're not here anymore. So what, we can't have our kids leaving school early. We know that, you know that. So the thing that's changed is not that our schools have changed all that much. It's that the world has changed faster than we've changed in education. We understand that. We know we've got to change. We know we've got to be able to adapt. We've gone from an agrarian system from a good ways back into the industrial age, into the information age, and really now we're beyond the information age. We're in an age of globalization where our kids are constantly connected. Our kids are constantly connected to the world. My goal one day is to go all the places that my daughters have been, all over the world. Be mission trips, college abroad, all those kind of things are now the norm. Your children, and grandchildren have done those things. And we know that many of those jobs that have gone overseas, most of them have gone for low-cost labor. And frankly, we don't want to compete for that. I don't want my children, I have a daughter who's an architect. I don't want her taking an architecture job for $10,000 a year that she might be able to get in India. I want her to be able to get a job that's going to pay, at least make it where it was worth all the money that I paid for her to get the architecture degree. So, with that in mind, and I'm getting to the meat, and I appreciate your humoring me a little bit, but our graduates have to be three things: lifelong learners, critical thinkers, and problem solvers, and of course communicators. And as I talk to people in business, that was the thing I've heard over the years: communication, number one. If you can communicate orally, you can become a supervisor in my business. If you can communicate in writing, you can go into management. And so, those are the three keys. I don't know what my second graders are going to be doing in 10 years, 12 years, 15 years when they've graduated and they go get a job. The jobs have changed too much. However, I do know that if they can do these three things, if they have these three skill sets, then they're going to be successful. So real quickly, and just to get all on the same page again, what should we teach? I believe there are three things: skills, processes, and values. And they're three different things, and sometimes we forget the values. But the skills, it's a different thing than teaching processes, and so we approach them in different ways. And how do we do it? And again, the rigor, relevance, relationships, you've all heard those words, but the idea of having true education, meaningful things going on in the classroom, and kids have to know that there's a reason for it. And that's where we get into some of the things we're about to talk about, along with the fact that we have to build those relationships in the school, and we have to build relationships with the home. As we talk about school culture, school improvement cannot be scaled, but innovation can be scaled. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's one of the things as charter systems that we're trying to talk about. We're trying to give everybody in our school system the idea that, hey, let's innovate. Let's find what it takes to reach every one of those children. And if we fail along the way in some places, that's okay. But we've got to reach everyone, and we're going to support you in innovating and trying to find a way. So 3 critical elements. Parent who cares about child's education. Number 1, if you care about your child's education, you can put them anywhere and they're going to get a good education. Okay? Home school, private school, public school, good school, bad school, name it. You're going to get a good education if you care as a parent. An excellent teacher, and one of the things that I always look for, and I talk about this, humility, integrity, and passion. If I find those 3 things in a teacher, I've got a teacher. And I've got somebody who's going to do what's right for students, and we're going to make a difference. And a committed principal that acts in loco parentis in the absence of the parent. And as I used to tell people when I was a principal, from 7:30 to 3:30, as I told my students, I'm your daddy. Okay? And they would laugh, and we had a big joke out of it. But the key is they understand that daddy's going to take care of you and keep you safe, number 1. And number 2, daddy's going to make sure you grow up right, do what you're supposed to do. Okay? And if we have that going on in our schools, we're going to be successful in our school. So how do we overcome the barriers? And now we have a lot of barriers. And this is getting to the meat of what y'all want to hear, but I kind of wanted to set the framework so we're all on the same page. And the computer's a little bit slow, so I'm going to go on a little ahead of it if y'all don't mind. I've got a chart in there you'll see from The Economist on what people say the problems are as they did in education. And you see the top 3 problems were listed as lack of parental involvement, too little money, lack of student discipline, top 3. And while those are 3 big ones, we know there are a lot of other issues. And yet, as we talk about barriers to learning, we know that socioeconomic levels are the greatest predictors of test scores. We know that before a kid walks in the door. We have high mobility levels. For a lot of us, what you might call school hopping or school system hopping, we have, and these are social issues. These aren't school issues. They're not necessarily changing because of the school, but the parent moves once, twice, 3 times during the year, and that child's not in the same school or in that same classroom for an entire school year. And I'm going to show you some numbers in a minute that are going to surprise you, I think. High levels of absenteeism and behavior problems and the problems that come with that, and some of the high absenteeism comes because of behavior problems. I want to give you some examples of those, and I'll start from some of one of my friends in Marietta City Schools, an outstanding charter system that is doing some really great things. And I would encourage you to get by there sometime and look. I happened to get in there a couple of weeks ago, and it was incredible. But poverty rate growing each year is now in Marietta at 67.7%. Student mobility rate, meaning the student was not in that school for the entire year, 25.77%. 1 in 4 students not in the school the entire school year. In Dublin City Schools for us, growing poverty rate, 82% poverty rate. And our student mobility rate is 21.23%. A fifth of our students are not in the school the entire year in the school with us. They're either leaving us or they're coming into us, 1/5 of our students. It's very difficult for teachers and principals in that situation to make a difference with those students. So how do you make a difference with the students of poverty and with those students that are toughest to deal with? And I'm going to tell you just a few things that some of these school systems could do. I could stay here all afternoon and talk about the innovations that are going on, but I'm just going to give you a few to kind of wet your whistle and to set the stage for Dr. Barrow and the great things they're doing in Ware County. But Marietta City Schools waived seat time to provide daily high school advisement period. okay, to be able to get students to connect, the relationship. They know somebody at school all the time, somebody to take their problems to, somebody when they have an issue during that 4 years, I know where to go. I don't feel lost at this school. That's a critical piece. They allowed decision-making power to school governing teams, even allowing one school decided to change the academic theme of their school. And more site-based management, more making decisions where things happen so you can make a change quickly and not have everything being run from the central office. Using Title I funds to add instructional days for students, for particular students, those who are struggling. Adding time. You know, you talk about the equation of achievement and equaling your work, your time, and you basically got to say, what are we going to do? How are we going to get achievement if we got students who are lower achieving? Are we going to give them more time to do it, more time to work, or are we going to do the same thing, keep time finite? If time's finite, then achievement is going to be a variable. Performance Grace Innovation Grants for science and math teachers to be able to get them to do things that haven't been done before and to change what's happening in the school system. In Madison County schools, a rural school system, not far from Athens there, good school system. They're making changes and addressing some of these barriers by implementing positive behavior intervention to create a positive school culture, to make sure that students have fewer behavior issues, that they're addressing things before they have problems. Serving students by need, not by label. Grouping students by skill deficit rather than by official labels. And by that I mean, and that's one of the things I was talking about before, about skills, processes, and values being different things. I was a high school football coach for 18 years. On skills, it's all about repetitions. Whether it's high school football, whether it's reading, whether it's math computation. It's all about repetitions when you're doing skills. So you can group differently for skills than for those processes. Processes is more like running plays. You got to get people together, even with different talent levels, to be able to make the thing work. And so you can put people together. Everybody can think. So we don't have to group somebody together all the time by skill level, because when they're working on processes, it's a different thing. So fluid grouping is a big piece of the puzzle. Screening students for multiple risk factors to concentrate on students with a high risk of dropping out is another thing that Madison City Schools do. So you know where your problems are, and you start to prevent those problems before they get there. You start watching them and helping them. In Dublin City Schools, we became a charter system. Madison is also a new charter system. We became a charter system 2 years ago. We restructured our school system by setting up academically themed elementary schools with no school zones. We added international baccalaureate programs at the middle and high school, focused professional development on project-based learning to get kids using what they learn, because we know that makes them know more, remember more. We partnered with 3 neighboring school systems and a technical college to create a regional career academy, also to get kids using what they learn. And I got a fuzzy picture up here. It's hard to see, but I took it with my cell phone camera, and I apologize to you. But let me tell you, when we decided we were going to do this, we said we're not going to have school zones. We're going to let parents choose which elementary school, which of these academically themed elementaries they want to go to. No school zones. And everybody told us, you're 82% free and reduced lunch. You're 85% minority. Your parents aren't going to come. And we said, well, we'll see. And they said, and if they do come, you're going to have all of the races split up, and you're going to have those problems. Well, our strategic planning committee worked really hard on this and was very purposeful in where they placed schools and the academic themes that they chose. We had a Saturday morning, February 26, 2011, parent sign up. And not only did parents show up, we were going to start at 8 o'clock. At 3:30 a.m., parents started lining up at the high school, and it was 40 degrees outside. I got there at 6, and there were 150 parents there at 6 a.m. This picture is a little after 6. That is the back half of the line. The line actually went the other way just as much and curved around both walls. And we started serving parents at 7:45 and letting them choose their schools. 90% of our parents came through that day, chose their student school, and because our committees had done a really good job, everybody got their first choice of school and grade. And not only that, our races were spread out, our economic backgrounds were spread out, and it worked. I mean, it's one of those where you say, thank you, Lord, but it worked. Our parents care about their children. Okay, parents, whether they're middle-class parents, whether they're parents of poverty, they care about their children. They love their children. You may not always see them because they may be working 2 jobs to make ends meet, but they do care. And with that means all we got to do is reach out to them and build those bridges. And I'm going to hurry up and finish up and get out of the way. But I got a couple more of important things I do want to say. Some other things we've done, just quick things, credit recovery, morning study groups, where sometimes we don't know if those parents are checking to make sure the kids are doing homework. So they've got somebody they report to every morning. They go to breakfast, and then they go see that adult. That adult sees 4 or 5 students every morning and says, let me see your homework. Are you having a problem there? Let me help you with this. So, the things that we don't control, we can't worry about. But there are things we can control to help those students of poverty and to help those students who have barriers overcome those barriers. So if they've got somebody at school who's looking out for them, being a sort of a pseudo-parent there at the school as well. Saturday parent academies. You'd be surprised how many parents have shown up for parent academies where we're helping them to learn the things they can do to help their children. Summer workouts. I had an elementary principal who's now a middle school principal for me, a great principal, former coach, who found that all these students of poverty were showing up at kindergarten and they were not able to compete with the students who weren't of poverty because of vocabulary issues. They lagged in vocabulary. They didn't have as many words. So he started saying, okay, bring them up here 2 hours a day, 3 days a week for 6 weeks during the summer. We'll call it summer workouts like we did with the high school football players. The parents would bring them up and drop them off and go to the grocery store and do the things they needed to do. And they had fun activities to help them attain the vocabulary that they needed. Makes a huge difference. 21st Century Learning Grants for after school and summer has made a huge difference for us as well in being able to give extra time to students who need it. Early results. In our school system, elementary discipline referrals were down 55.38% our first year of implementation of really pushing project-based learning in these academic themes. I think getting kids involved in their learning makes a difference. Only 5% of parents chose to move their child from one school to another at the end of the school year. We allow them to choose to move if they wish, but they have to do it at the end of the year. 95% were happy where they were. So that told us we were doing something right. The percentage of students who met the exceeded level on state tests rose significantly. And that was something that we were very pleased with because that means they weren't just barely getting by. That means they're getting something and they're getting where they know it. Writing scores have risen across the grades, and high school writing scores exceeded the state average despite 77% poverty rate at the high school. And just real quickly, looking at the middle school where most of your bullying and fighting incidents take place in any school system, and looking at the things that have happened there, at what we've been able to do to reduce the bullying and fighting incidents by changing school culture in that school and by connecting with students is outstanding in what our staff has done there, and connecting with parents and making sure that we're talking back and forth. Same thing on the next, if you'll see the student absence is 15 or more days, we've been able to reduce that. The same thing, getting kids involved, building those relationships and getting them into relevant learning. And then one thing real quickly, education partnerships is a critical piece. And I want to introduce to you, just for a couple of minutes, Cal Ray, who is the head of the Dublin Lawrence County Development Authority. He's been able to bring in 3 European companies in the last 2 years, 2 auto parts manufacturers and a solar panel manufacturer. And I just wanted him to mention real quickly the way they see what's happening in our school systems and what they're looking for, if you'll allow me to. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Dr. Ledbetter came to me and asked me to just give a little perspective on what we see from the economic development standpoint in education. Give you a little background. Dublin is about 50,000. The county itself is about 50,000 people, but we have a fairly significant economic development program. Last year, I'll give you some numbers to get a perspective on what we see. We worked with about 70 companies, potential of about $4.8 billion for the state of Georgia, and potentially 12,000 jobs. That is what we saw last year. So fairly significant what we see. And of that, about 90% is from Western Europe. So many of the companies we see are from Europe. So we get a different perspective on what they look for. And a trained and skilled workforce in education is very high on their list. So when we can come and say the city of Dublin system and the Lawrence County system, especially the city of Dublin, has put an international baccalaureate program in place. They have a charter system. The two systems have combined to do a career academy. Those all resonate, but you still get from especially the German community, our training is the best in the world. We need to send our key people back to Germany for training, and then they look at that, there's a cost associated with that. So can we go to a different state and get a more trained and ready workforce, or do we need to pay to send people from Dublin back to Germany to be trained? And we've been able to show them that there's an adequate base here, there's adequate skills here, and we constantly need to improve those, but we have been able to let them see that you don't have to send everyone back to train in your programs in Germany. And these IB programs and the charter systems and these career academies have all helped. But I'll give you two examples. Technik, it's an automotive component supplier to BMW, Mercedes, many of the major European lines. Competition over about a year. They announced in January of 2012 to create 200 jobs and invest $45 million in Dublin. A very good project for Dublin and Lawrence County. The three finalists were Auburn, Alabama, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Dublin, Georgia. And when you think of automotive, you would think Charlotte or you would think Auburn over Dublin, Georgia. Fortunately, we were able to show them from an education standpoint, from a training standpoint, and from a logistics standpoint, along with the sites and the infrastructure we had in place, that it made more of a complete picture in Dublin, Georgia. Fortunately, from that experience, in March of 2012, we were able to locate a second supplier, a Danish company that had looked at 48 sites across the southeast U.S. and eventually chose Dublin to create 250 jobs and invest $15 million. Those two companies, education was one of those components because of the number of jobs they needed to create. Now we have many things we need left to do, left to do. One would be an intern or a program where they can work and have on-the-job training to show what they can do. They have those programs in Germany, the apprenticeship programs. That is still something we need to add. But if you look at Dublin last year, we were able to announce 5 new industries. We had over 20 new and expanding industries that invested over $200 million and created over 700 jobs. So we see a different perspective, and we're very pleased at what the city and the county systems have done in the community, along with the partnerships for the career academies. I'm glad to answer any questions, but I'll turn it back over to Chuck. I just wanted to give you a quick perspective.
And I'm going to wrap up, and if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer anything you might have. And I know Dr. Barrow has an excellent presentation as well. And I did have just a last thing or two to say, and but our computer's a little slow, so just a last quote, and the Einstein quote there is one that I always find important, but the understand what has been, produce what should be is a quote that came from a student that I had several years ago, and I thought that that's really what we're about in education. We need to know where we're coming from and understand how we got here, but we need to be producing where we need to be going. And with that, I thank you very much for your time and for your attentiveness. And if you have questions, I'd be glad to answer any.
Dr. Ledbetter, I do appreciate your presentation. We have 3 questions. Senator Miller.
Dr. Ledbetter, your enthusiasm is obviously very refreshing. You can tell you were a football coach. Maybe we could have used you for 10 yards the other week. Anyway, my question to you, what's the number of students in your system?
Just over 3,000.
All right, we've got a lot of small systems throughout this state. I don't have the number right in front of me. I don't see Tom back. There's Tom. I'm not sure, but it's substantial.
Yes, sir.
And what you've been able to do, it seems to me this is something we ought to be replicating from a standpoint of your achievement results, all the social factors, the problems that you're dealing with. And I guess my question, Mr. Chairman, is what are we doing? We have these kind of success stories with the department back here that we replicate this, because it's pretty phenomenal what you've accomplished so far. And it seems to me that I'd like to scale it in the metro area, but certainly for your peer group, this can be done. And in conjunction with other school board superintendents like yourself, whether it's through GSBA, whatever, are you taking this, are we exporting this throughout the state in a lot of areas, some of the successes you've had? Can you tell me that?
I can sort of tell you that. You know,
I want to check it out, but I just want to ask you.
In education, we tend to a lot of times work in silos, and we're trying to spread that, and that's one of the things we're trying to do. And I think you'll find education leaders in this state are very committed to that. We've seen I think a refreshing commitment to that from the State Department in recent years, and I know from other superintendents I see that on a regular basis. I'm always, anywhere I go, I start seeing things and go, wow, we can do that. And but also, part of it is charter system flexibility helps to be able to say, I can do something different here, and I can, if I need to put 35 students into this upper level calculus course so that I can have a little extra money to do something that's going to make a difference over here, I can do that. Now, we don't have any of that kind of number, but now what we do have is, and the research will show, if you add 2 students to a class, you're not changing what's happening in that class. But now you've got some money left over in the end by the time you do that over several classes to do something else.
All right.
Yes.
One follow-up for flexibility, and the follow-up's this. We've been wrestling with the fact about how to give people flexibility for the last year and a half.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know what your academic results were before, but if they've substantially improved, we've got to find a way to find, I won't say failing, but less than desired results schools like yourselves, and give them the opportunity to do this kind of thing. And I guess, how bad were your results before you started doing this, or were they good before you started doing this?
We have a good school system and always have had. However, and we're building with that. We're building with those people, with the personnel we've got. Great personnel in the system. Our test scores weren't where we want to be, and they're still not. They're climbing, but they're not where we wanted to be. And let me say this with this mixed result, okay? After 1 year of charter system status, we did not move our did not meets number like I wanted to. It was about the same on the test scores that we give out. However, our exceeds number jumped quite a bit. So what we saw was we had students getting a deeper learning and understanding more. We still have that tough nut to crack at the bottom that we still have to work more on, and we're doing more things to do.
Thanks very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We have several questions. Our time is getting relatively short for this segment before our next presenter, but I would like to call on Chairman Carter for your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to ask them quickly, and if you'll answer them quickly, then we'll get through them.
Yes, ma'am.
First one is about the school option where the student or the parent gets to select the school, the elementary school. How do you handle transportation and those issues?
We're a little bit of an anomaly because we're in a small town as far as geographically, as city limits goes. And let me also, short answer is we transport anywhere in town.
Okay.
Okay. The other
Just
thing
make it
is,
happen.
the other short answer I got to throw in, unlike most of the Atlanta area, every school system in our area will take students from out of system. Now, they don't transport from out of system, but they'll take them from out of system. So we have open, you talk about school choice, we got it in South Georgia.
Okay. Next question is about on your addressing the barriers. For the second bullet point, you said serving students by need and not by label. I call that tracking in the sense of the education world, and that's a dirty word.
Well, but let me tell you why it's not tracking.
And I believe what you're doing is the right thing.
Well, this is actually, that was Madison County, but we're trying to do that as well. And what that is rather than saying we're going to track kids and we're going to put these kids in level 1, these level 2, these level 3, you say we're going to have homogeneous classes. Each class is going to be just like every other. Now, when it comes time to work on reading, when I got a first grade class that's working on reading skills, those who are high level need, and what we've done in other places, other systems I've been in the past, we took 4 different teachers, 4 different classes, and we said, okay, we're going to basically group our skill levels so that each day they, when they go to skill level groups, they go to skill level groups for an hour or so, or less, sometimes 30 minutes, where they're working on the skills. But they may have a skill in one area that they're deficient in and not in another area. So you don't put them in that group all the time and leave them sitting there. They can think just like everybody else. They just got to work on that skill. And so you work skill levels together, but you don't just group together in a track forever.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Great questions. I think the benefit of having the variety of speakers we have is while the school districts are diverse, sometimes in their problems there's a lot of commonality in the problems they face. Maybe the strategies have to be different, and that's why we're trying to do that. I've got a few more questions. I think these questions are so good because they go to the heart of the problems that we face operationally across the state. I'm going to take a couple more questions, and we'll do that. Representative Dudgeon.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm taking
Chairman.
these in the order that they came on the board.
Dr. LeBen, appreciate it. And one of my questions was already asked by Representative Carter about transportation, and you're lucky with a small district like that.
Yes.
Second one was, how much extra money did this require from a percentage of your budget in order to reconfigure? Was this more of a restructuring, or did it cost a lot of extra money?
For us, it was a restructuring that didn't cost a lot of extra money. The problem is making cuts at the same time.
Everybody else was making.
Right,
yeah.
right, and so it's money times are tight, and that hadn't changed.
All right. Thank you.
Representative Setzler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your presentation. I was excited about some of the things you're doing with the school choice among your district, and you realized the walls didn't fall in, it worked, and
Right.
Parents were able to exercise choice. I recall when we passed this back in the 07-08 session, the discussion about a charter system was really a covenant.
Mm-hmm.
It was a covenant from the state to the system, from the system to the school, that said, we state will leave you system alone. We'll lift Title 20 requirements off of you.
Yes.
If you will allow school level governance.
Absolutely.
And in fact, I flipped through, and in the bill, the definition of school level governance says means decision making. I'm reading from the bill itself: authority in personnel decisions, financial decisions, curriculum, instruction, resource allocation, and establishing and monitoring achievement and school improvement goals. That sounds like school level governance. And
yes.
My concern as charter systems have been implemented across the state, without a whole lot of knowledge of your system particularly, is that the systems that became charter systems enjoyed that level of flexibility from Title 20, but I've not seen the school level governance where parent councils were really driving the school, making the decisions about principals, curriculum decisions. That was the covenant that really made me excited about charter systems coming in, but I've been a little disappointed in how that's been implemented. Could you speak to that in your system?
Love to. In our system, that's what we're doing. As a matter of fact, I've got a principal opening, and the school governing board is about to be doing interviews. They also actually do the hiring, where they make the recommendation to me for the hiring for teachers. We give the school the decision-making power. Now, let me say this: the thing I've learned, and I've seen as I've talked to other charter systems, it's been a learning curve for everybody, because it's a different thing, and people kind of go, well, even if they're on that board, they go, how much power do I actually have? What should we really do? We're pushing ours. We just had governance board training just over a week ago, and we're really pushing our people to say, look, take the responsibility. You have the authority and the responsibility. Take the decision making and go with it. We want to be able to be there for the things that are policy wise, and to make sure that they follow those dictates that we can't get out of, the federal mandates, those kind of things. So we're there to give them information and to make sure we stay on the right track, but they're there to make the decisions, and to make decisions faster and quicker that are going to be better for their students. And we hope to see different things in different places. The first thing all my 3 elementary principals wanted to do when we started it was say, well, what's everybody else doing? And I had to tell them, doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. If this is good for you, let's do it.
And Mr. Chairman, I just raised that question. I know there's some new members on this committee that might not have been here when we passed that. That school level governance was really, as I saw, the foundation of charter systems. And to get parent involvement, when you really power decisions down to the school level, you ignite parent involvement like nothing else in public education. So I would commend you for that.
Senator Ford.
Yeah, you said that your schools were themed. You had a
yes,
set
sir.
of themes.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what those are?
Sure.
And can you tell us how you developed those specific themes?
Okay, our elementary has three themed schools. One is science, technology, engineering, and math. One is talented, arts, and gifted. And one is leadership, environmental awareness, and public service. So we call it the STEM school, the TAG school, the LEAP school. They all get the same academic standards, but the projects that they work on deal with the theme of the school, as they use what they learn. We came to them because in our strategic planning, we put together a committee for that specific purpose, to decide what were our themes going to be and how we were going to do it. Getting heads together and giving people real power made a tremendous difference, because I had some ideas, and I think my ideas probably would have worked all right. But the people got together and came up with better ideas. And one of the specific points in that is, my thought was, name the principals, then name the teachers, etc. No, the committee said no. We get the principals together and let's get our faculties chosen with the input of the principals without them knowing where they're going to go, so that everybody makes sure every faculty is a good faculty. Nobody's trying to get all the best for myself. We're trying to make sure they're all three good, and then decide on where the principals go. And it was a brilliant move, you know. I mean, and many of you might have thought of it. I never did. You know, my thinking from top-down kind of mentality was, well, you do it this order. And those kind of things made the difference. They decided not only what the themes were going to be, but which school would have which theme. So STEM, we knew a lot of middle-class parents would want STEM, so the STEM school, that committee decided to put in our poorest neighborhood. And to get people to say, okay, I'll go over there to go to a STEM school. And so it was very purposeful in the way they thought and the decisions that they made, and it worked.
Second question, you know, you ascribe to something that I do, and we all hopefully do, that all children can learn.
Yes, sir.
Even those children who are poor.
Yes, sir.
At the same time, I'm very interested in what you had to say about the economically disadvantaged children and all that, and the extra time,
sure,
the Saturday school or the summer coaching rather. Right. At the same time, you know, we're here making decisions on budgets, mm-hmm, and you know, we've cut school nutrition, for example.
Right.
And we know a child who is not well fed, the chance of them learning, yes, is greatly decreased. I'm just wondering if you can comment on how much better would you be able to, your system, how much better would your system perform if in fact those issues, sure, were resolved?
Absolutely, and I appreciate that question. One thing that we know research shows us is that most students of poverty and students of middle class learn at the same rate during the school year. Where we're losing is during the summer. Most of those middle class students, parents are making sure they're involved in things, taking them on educational field trips, doing different things with them during the summer that enhance their education. While the students of poverty whose parents may be working 2 jobs or may not be around as much, they're spinning their wheels. And we're losing ground each summer to come back during the year and try to close the gap a little bit, learn about the same rate, and then lose more ground. And you do that over 12 years, and it's very difficult. So yes, if we had the ability to be able to do more in those off times with those students of poverty, I think you would see the difference and the gap go away.
I'm going to call on one more question. I want to wrap this segment up, but what I would like to do is to come back and have some more questions at the end.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to call on Chairman Coleman to ask the last question, but I've also got Senator Stone, Representative Kaiser, and Senator James. I've got your name down, and I'll give y'all first shot at answering. And I have taken the questions in the order they've came up on the board, so I'm not playing favorites up here.
A couple of quick questions. Just first of all, with all this flexibility, you fill out all this application. What kind of hoops do you feel, though, that you still have to jump through that are binding your hands? We want you to have complete freedom. Leave you alone. Yes. And nobody's feelings is going to be hurt. What's been the biggest obstacle?
Well, it probably will, but that's okay. The biggest obstacle still is everybody getting on the same page as what charter system and what the flexibility means. There are things.
Now, everybody, you mean here at the state level, or you?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, state department, federal, all those folks saying, okay, what does it mean? What can we waive and what can we not? Because sometimes there are things that we feel like, for example, teacher certification has come up before. We can waive it. We chose to only waive it in certain areas where it made sense. Okay, for example, if we're hiring somebody who's teaching auto mechanics and he's been teaching 15 years at the college, but he doesn't have a teaching certificate, we're pretty sure that he can teach auto mechanics.
It's okay. He should be able to, right?
Exactly. And there have been times where we've run into things where, well, because of our grant for CTAE grant, it says it has to be a certified teacher. So if you do that, you can't use the grant. So things like that where we probably just need to articulate better.
Okay, that's what we're thinking.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ledbetter. I appreciate it. We will move to the next segment and ask Dr. Jody Barrow to come forth and present. I would like to point out, as has been stated, Dr. Ledbetter has a charter system. Dr. Barrow does not. I would like for you to talk about the particularities of Ware County.
Yes, sir. I'm going to try to check out of this and check into ours. Chuck, you want to take yours out? I don't know that that's going to take it off. Is it falling asleep?
It was very slow.
Okay. There it goes. Okay.
I'm going to write this up for a story tomorrow, if you don't mind. Excuse me. It's just,
Okay.
it's slow taking this down.
Okay. Folks, let me go ahead and we'll talk just a few minutes with you. Senator Tippins, Representative Coleman, and the rest of the senators and representatives here, thank you again for the opportunity to come and speak with you. A lot of times I get the question, where in the world is Ware? So I'm going to give you just a real quick geography lesson. We're about an hour and 15-20 minutes north of Jacksonville. We're about 2 hours west of Savannah, about an hour away from St. Simons and Jekyll Island and the coast. Most of you probably will recognize the home of the Okefenokee Swamp a little bit better. A community, and if you're ever on Jeopardy, I'll give you a fun factoid that might help. Waycross is the largest city in the largest county of Ware, in the largest state, Georgia, east of the Mississippi. So that might make you some money someday. I don't know.
Smarter than a fifth grader.
There you go. There you go. But Ware County is a community that is very special to me. I've been in Ware. This is my 7th year. But it's a county that does have some unique issues. We are a low wealth district. Out of 180 school districts, I think our current ranking is 148. We actually moved up a little bit in the ranking. That still puts us in the bottom quartile. All of our kids, we're roughly 70% free and reduced. Generational poverty is consistent and pervasive. Graduation rate has been very, very low for a number of years, and I think we'll show you some data here that has really okay. As we need to move all the way up to the very first. Okay. So graduation rate is something that is very important to us, and we will. I'm going to go ahead and start. I did not make paper hard copies. If you'd like one of those, I'll be happy to do that. My paper budget's a little bit low, so I'm being conservative. But I'll be happy to send the electronic version to you. And we've really gone through a major metamorphosis in Ware County, and it's coming. In fact, I didn't tell you this. I actually serve on the governor's digital task force committee, and one of the first recommendations, Sam, and I think he was in here a little bit earlier, I'm going to recommend maybe he gets you some new technology here. So it'll work a little bit better, I'm sure. But if you look at the PowerPoint here, Ware County is, we've rebranded our system. We talk about success for all and pathways for all. Prior to coming, and Chuck's touched on this already, the 19th century agrarian model, the 20th century industrial model, now we're into the 21st century, and obviously we've got to deliver education a little bit differently. And in times past, those kids who were successful, a lot of times it was by chance. It depended upon whether or not you were in a place where you lived and you had a good school, and maybe even more importantly, if you had a great teacher. And if you did that, you knew you were going to get a quality education. But we've got to move away from success by chance to success by design, and that's what you're hearing some here today. We're designing our student success. It's very purposeful. I was a kid that beat the odds. I grew up in a very poor family, but I had some good teachers and people who cared about me, and I had a pretty decent college education, and I was able to beat the odds. But not all kids are that lucky. And what we've got to be able to do is take that out of the equation and not just try to beat the odds, but change the odds. And I think that we can do that through education. And you talk about why change, and if you talk to different people, they will tell you education is doing better today than it ever has before. And if you look at it from a historical perspective, that indeed is true. But there's some reasons why we need to do even more. And if you look at this quote, this is something I saw actually last summer, but it really resonated with me, that when the rate of change happens faster outside of the organization than inside the organization, the end of that organization is near. And I think that's pretty much true for any human organization, whether it be schools or businesses or industry. So we've got to take that into consideration. And if you look, schools are improving. And I'm going to go through these slides as quickly as the computer will allow me to do so. But the world is changing so much faster. I don't have to tell you that. You know that. I think this is where my school district is now. Over the last 6 years, we've made some tremendous gains, and we've really have grown and improved. But this is where I really want us to go. I want us to be well above where the world is. And I'm going to share some data with you. I won't bog you down, but we are very data-driven in our school district. We trust, but we verify. You know, in God we trust, everybody else I want to see your data. And that's something that we look at. So we adopted a model of achievement and accountability, and that was back in 2006 when we first came in. But everything that we do ties back into student success. That's the core of everything that we do. If it doesn't generate student success, we're going to look at it very carefully, in most cases get rid of it, because we do have limited time. We do have limited resources. We do have limited energy. So we want to focus on student success. That's critically important to us. If you look, and I'm going to throw a couple of diagrams at you here. The instructional component, folks, I think we understand what that's about. Whether it's the QCC or the GPS or the CCGPS, you know, the instructional component is what teachers do in their classroom every day. And we want to make sure that's rigorous, but I think we have a pretty good handle around that. At least we're working to gain that as we implement the Common Core. The other big bullet there is the management, the governance component. You know, this is everything from the federal laws, ESEA, No Child Left Behind, now our federal or our state waiver, our CCRPI, the College and Career Readiness Performance Index. We have Title 20 here in the state. We have local Board of Education policies. We understand those two pieces pretty well, and I think we do a fairly good job with that. But the one thing that we haven't done a lot with, and we're really going to have to focus on, is how we're going to remove barriers from learning and teaching for our children. As Chuck talked about, we have kids that come today that are just really behind for whatever reason, and they start out at different points. And what we've got to do is look at what those barriers are and try to remove those so that all of our children can be successful. I'm going to show you this piece of data, and I think it's pretty powerful. It comes up here. You can take a look. Just before we got to where you can see our graduation rate was 45%. It still makes me nauseated to see that number. You can look at last year's graduation rate is at 80%. Now, I will tell you right out of the chute, that is the old calculation method, but I wanted to be able to compare apples to apples. Our new cohort rate, the state, I think the state graduation rate was a little over 80%, 80.9, something like that. And it fell to 67%, I think is what the new cohort rate is. Our cohort rate is 76%, so we're really actually 9 percentage points above. Now, I'm not satisfied with that. In fact, I'm not happy with it. We feel like it needs to be up at well into the 90s. But the progress is what I want to note here. And the thing that I also want to point out is look at the closure of the achievement gaps between your African American students, You had a good gain with your white students. Our students with disabilities, that increased over 5 times there. And our economically disadvantaged more than doubled. So folks, I think it was Andy Griffin that said it. If it's not bragging if you're doing it. You can see we're doing it. And I'm very pleased with that. It's coming. I feel real good about the progress. And folks, it is incredibly hard work. I know some of the things, one of the other members asked about, well, are we scaling this? Are there some things that we can do? And folks, I can tell you there is really no single silver bullet. There's no quick fixes to this. You have to change attitudes and opinions across the board. And sometimes that's community leaders. Sometimes that's mom and dads. A lot of times it's even our own educators. And we have to do that. And we feel like we're making that happen. We've increased expectations for our students, a laser-like focus on standards-based instruction. Chuck mentioned the issue of rigor, relevance, and relationships. We believe those are the new 3 R's, and we really do want to increase the rigor of our curriculum. We think the Georgia Performance Standards and Common Core is working to do that. The relevance piece, we've talked about career pathways, and that is a big part of our success. If kids understand why they're learning algebra or trigonometry or biology or English, then they're more apt to learn it. And the relationship piece, that may be the most important thing that we do, and we have to build those relationships with our young people. We have a very comprehensive school improvement model. It's called the Pyramid of Interventions. I'm very proud of our district on the cutting edge work we've done there. In fact, our district and our high school just recently were named best practice sites in the state of Georgia for our RTI work, our response to intervention. We've really, really worked hard to engage or re-engage those children all across the board. And unfortunately, I have some video clips that I was going to show you, but we're not going to be able to do that because it's just not going to pull up. But I will mention we had what we called Splash Day. This May will be 3 years ago. We were able to talk with a lot of people, the university system, local telco providers, but Ware County was the second public school district in Georgia to connect to PeachNet. And because of that, we formed partnerships with people all over the world where we're able to video conference, high-definition video conference, and have meetings with people and let kids interact and learn. Our children have manipulated a telescope from a computer in Waycross that's in Bathurst, Australia. Our children have had the opportunity to go to the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island. Our kids have competed against kids in Canada with a Jeopardy-style game. We've gone to the Center for Puppetry Arts here in Atlanta and participated with them on many, many activities. So I do think that technology is a way to engage students, and we're very pro that and working really hard to make that happen. Just to show you some of the connections, if you want to see, we had actually our folks were meeting with representatives from Georgia Tech and Ireland this morning. We're working to try to do a project-based learning activity out of the Okefenokee Swamp, and in Ireland they have the bogs. And those are two very unique ecosystems, and we think our kids can learn a lot from each other in doing that. You can see the number of connections that we've had, well over 100 last year, and it's really rich. It's really meaningful for our students to be able to participate in these. I'm going to go ahead and move on through this. One of the more unique ones we had last year was actually an opportunity where we had fourth grade kids at Ruskin Elementary who have a free and reduced rate of 90%, actually a little over 90% at that school. But those kids were able to, there were only 3 schools in the country that had this opportunity. We had to compete to be able to do this, but we were selected. And our fourth graders had an opportunity to have a live connection with former First Lady Barbara Bush. And if you know Miss Bush, she's very into reading and literacy, and she had an opportunity to talk with fourth grade kids, and they had an opportunity to actually ask her questions. How cool is that? You know, those are the kinds of things that we want to open up because, frankly, our children, you know, rarely do they ever get out of Ware County, much less be able to come to the aquarium or the Museum of Art or go to a zoo, and they can do that through this technology. The pathway video is amazing. I'd love to show it to you. We're currently, we have 14 different career pathways. If you have not been to this, I would encourage you to come. I know I saw Mark Whitlock from CEC and Rockdale Career Academy. You've got some great ones. Chuck is certainly establishing his. And folks, that helps build the relevance piece. It impacts you in so many different ways. The kids, in many cases, were bored, didn't want to come to school, were dropping out. You see, that's a direct climb there. That's one of the reasons they want to come to school. And if you come, I can't fake it. If you come, you will see the excitement. They want to be there because they're involved in activities that are relevant to them, that they have an interest in. One of our largest programs is telehealth. I say telehealth. It's a health science pathway. And we've done some very unique things there in partnering with the Georgia Partnership for Telehealth. We literally have kids that are working with Children's Health out of Atlanta, where we have a pediatric cardiologist that are teaching children heart function, nephrologist, wound care specialist. All of these folks are being able to actually connect with our children. And those young people, as juniors and seniors, are able to get their CNAs, and they're actually going out and working and earning a living at $10, $11 an hour. And pretty much everyone we can create, our local hospital was taking in and putting to work. Let's see. Going to move on through this. Would love to show these to you. If you want to look at my computer, I can actually show them on mine. You see that we have Senator Chambliss is there. Dr. Barge has been down. We've had lots of people who have come and visited and are beginning to replicate a number, or at least parts of what we're trying to operate. The last thing I want to speak to is the behavior pyramid, because I know that was one of the issues that was important that we discussed. With our pyramid of interventions and our response intervention, there's the piece for academics, there's the piece for English language learners, there's the piece for gifted. You know, we want our bright kids to really be pushed and accelerated too. But probably the toughest piece that we're working on is the the behavior part of the pyramid. And I know you can't read this, but we all have codes of conduct in school. And, you know, that's what's been in place for a long time. But, you know, we're taking a different look at it, a different perspective. If a child is not reading well, we have some type of reading intervention. We're going to work to try to help them be able to learn to read. If a child is deficient in mathematics, we're going to work really hard to try to help them become better math students. If a child is misbehaving, probably the quickest thing to do is out of here. And, you know, we can't do that, not when we're held accountable for that student's academic performance. Now, obviously, there are things that are sudden death, if you will. And if they're really, really serious issues, we do take care of that. But we try to make sure we're teaching children how to self-regulate, how to self-monitor, and control their behavior while they're at school. And a lot of it really does go back into the engagement piece. But the last slide I'm going to show you here, and I really wish you could see this, one of the things that we've done through the technology is connected with, and if you look in Tier 3, the red piece here, there's a component that deals with mental health resources. And if you've seen any of the most recent reports come out, roughly 20% of any classroom could have 4 to 5, about 20% of the classroom or 4 to 5 students could have some type of undiagnosed mental health issue. And we see a lot of that in our community. If I could show this video, it is a clip of a third grader. True story, tell it real quick. This young man came to school, was having major problems in the classroom. And we've got good teachers. We've got good counselors, good administrators. But this child was, he was off the chain, as our high school kids would say. He had to have a parapro assigned to him full time. When he went to cafeteria, if his peas and his carrots touched, he went ballistic, just really ripping it up and taking a lot of time and resources away. The mother loved her child, but she was at a loss, single mother, didn't have an automobile. We had tried to make connections for her locally. That just wasn't happening. But through this telehealth partnership, we were able to actually connect this child to a child and adolescent psychiatrist here at Children's Health at the Marcus Institute. And after a couple of visits, basically the psychiatrist found that he had a sensory disorder, prescribed the right medications. The child now is doing well on his own. We still have regular appointments with him. But what we really found out was the kid is very bright. In fact, he's just been tested for gifted. If we had not been able to deal with that mental health issue, think about the resources that would have happened through that kid's career and maybe not even get to the end where he could graduate. Now we think he may be one of our honor graduates. You know, he's that bright. That's the kind of work and innovation that we're doing in Ware County, and would love for you to come and visit. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know Dr. Avosa is here, and I'm going to try to give him his allocated time.
Do we have any questions? Yes.
If you don't mind.
Chairman Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick plug to the committee that if you get the opportunity to please take the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education bus trip. I've been on my 4th trip now, and last year we went to Ware County High School, and it was by far my favorite school on the trip. There are great schools every year, but amazing stuff you're doing. And I just must say that I commend you. You're doing a fantastic job, and you're making South Georgia look really great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. We've got great teachers. They're doing the work. I just get to come brag about it.
Do we have any other questions? If not, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
For coming, Dr. Barrow. Our next presenter is Dr. Robert Avosa from the Fulton County school system. I had the privilege of visiting with Dr. Avosa for about an hour and a half about 6 months ago. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and he shared with me some of the initiatives that he has. And our whole focus in this is to try to show the differences between the rural systems and the urban systems and charter and non-charter. So, Dr. Avosa, thank you so much for coming. I know your schedule's tight, and I do appreciate you making the effort to be here.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, others. I want to start first by saying in Fulton County, we've got lots of interesting and exciting work, and I'm happy to share a little bit about that. Fulton County, our theory of action is that we understand that it's impossible and quite improbable that a central office can be something for everybody. And let me explain. Fulton County has nearly 95,000 students and over 100 schools. 10% of our population is currently choosing charter as an option. And we've got in North County, Northview High School has the highest SAT score in the state of Georgia for a comprehensive high school. And we've got Banneker High School. Northview has about a 98% graduation rate and the highest SAT score in the state of Georgia. And we have Banneker High School, which has a 42% graduation rate. And the idea that a district like ours can customize the support that each of those schools needs from a centralized standpoint is just unlikely. And so what we've decided to do, because of the layers of complexity in our school district, our average SAT score is the second highest in Georgia. We moved from the 6th to the 2nd last year, only behind Cherokee County. But what's hidden in those numbers is the fact that 5 of our comprehensive high schools in South County, although 4 of the 5 made gains last year, they're significantly below the state average. So that's just to give you a little bit of complexity with a large urban-suburban school district. And the ways that we're moving about this is that we believe that in order to unleash the innovation, the energy, the passion, the engagement that you need from parents and teachers, we've got to give more authorities to the school. So when we launched our work around the charter system, we made sure that our governance councils have the authority to make the decisions at the schoolhouse, but we also know that there's a lot of work that needs to occur in order to give them the skills they need to manage that kind of requirement and role in the school. So we're spending nearly $4.5 million over the next 5 years in training our governance councils. We've partnered with local businesses like North Highland, the Goizetta Business School, and others to help us build a set of trainings for each of those governance councils. We're excited about that. And so as we thought about the charter system, we knew that we had to decentralize the school district. Essentially what we decided was we're going to break the district up into 4 learning communities: South Learning Community, Central, Northeast, and Northwest. Each one of those learning communities models is supported with a different number of people with different expertise. So for example, in South County, we have a low graduation rate. The number of specialists that are assigned to support those schools is significantly higher around graduation rate than it is, for example, in Northeast Learning Community. Or in the Central Learning Community, we have a high population of ESL students, English as a second language. We've got support mechanisms in place for that. And these folks work in the community. They're not downtown. They're in the schools. We track each of their visits. The other piece that I think is important to understand, we didn't shuffle sort of the chairs on the Titanic. We cut 150 central office employee positions, and people had to compete for those jobs out in the field. And because, and you all know the traffic in the area if you're from here, putting those positions out in the field, the quality of candidate increased significantly because no one wants to drive into town an hour and a half making a $50,000 salary. So we're really pleased about that. Those 4 regions are in place for the first time this year. We're about 6 months into that, and we're already beginning to see some pretty remarkable gains in the kinds of metrics that we're tracking. So folks have often asked, why charter? Why is the charter system such an important part of our reform strategy? Well, I wish you could have seen what happened here just a few months ago. We had 95 open seats in a very, very diverse group of schools. In fact, 7 of the schools, the majority of our schools in cohort 1 of the charter system are in South County, some of our most challenging schools. We had 220 candidates that ran for those 95 spots. Now, I'll tell you, my wife's in PTA, et cetera, when people begin to understand that they actually have a voice, that they're actually going to make a decision, the kinds of people who step forward were much higher, right? You're not asking people to do cupcakes and raise money for the school. You're asking them to make decisions about budgets, about the direction of the school, the investments that need to be made. The prevailing myth was that parents are not interested, they're not being engaged. We've proven that wrong, including in our low-performing schools that have less parental involvement. More than 3,000 parents and teachers cast ballots during this last round. So we're going through 20 schools now. Next year there'll be another 40 schools on board, and in our 3rd year, all 100 schools will be part of this new structure. We've also invested, like I said, significant dollars in this. We did get recently a Georgia Innovation Grant for $640,000, which we're very proud of, and those dollars went right back into strategic planning, governance, decision-making, school finance, and we're using a business analytical model called Trago, where we're teaching people how to make decisions, and that's an important piece. Now, the kinds of challenges we face in Fulton County, again, averages sometimes don't tell the full story, but our attendance rate in Fulton is about 96.3% on any given day. The unexcused absence is just above 1.5%. It has fallen some, but the part we're most pleased about is that the number of students with 10 or more unexcused absences was about 2,000 this past year, as opposed to 5,500 the previous year. So that's a key indicator. The literature will tell you clearly that if a kid misses more than 10 days, they're not likely to stay on track. So we've seen that cut in half. Current discipline data, this is the part that's staggering. In Fulton County, our in-school suspension days last year were 21,600. Our out-of-school suspension were 44,380. Now, we know if kids aren't in school, they're not learning. We've decided that we're not good at this, okay? And what do I mean by that? We as a district aren't good at this. We've gone to the marketplace, and we are outsourcing all of our discipline to an organization that will be managing both short-term suspension, medium-term suspension, and long-term suspension. What we've realized is our own sort of options here haven't been successful. So we're going out, we've put out an RFP, and we're getting ready to turn that over to an outside group to help us really think through that. The charter system process and the learning community model will improve outcomes, some of which I shared with you today. We're no longer required we're not sort of bound by time in seat requirements. Let me give you an example. Right now in Fulton County, we've got students who are a year or 2 years ahead and can do the work, and we're allowing them to move right on through. They've mastered the curriculum, and I think that's what you hear a lot from parents in the public sector. All I hear you all talking about is what you're doing for the bottom quartile. What about my kid? My kid isn't in the bottom quartile, they're in the top quartile. What are you doing for them? This allows us to customize the kinds of things that kids can be exposed to. It can also help kids who are looking at career and technical ed options. We have lost our way in the state of Georgia. I've been here 18 months. I spent 5 years in North Carolina and 12 in Florida. We are so far behind on career and technical ed here, and we wonder why kids are dropping out of school. They're dropping out of school because they don't see a connection to what they're learning in the classroom to some outcome. So if you're not college bound, we don't have a place for you right now. And that is a major problem. It's a crisis. And the fact that we're now able to give credit-bearing internships and mentorships to kids, they can come to school for 3 hours, take the reading, writing, and math, right? And then go to work and earn credits and still have to meet all the other requirements that we need to make sure that kids have to graduate. But not all kids are going to go to college, and I think it's time that we're honest about that and we begin to speak openly about that. This year we put in virtual labs at all of our schools so kids can make up credits. They still have to prove they have the curriculum. We've got seniors who walk out 3 months before graduation because they're half a credit behind, and they have to wait another year to start. Under the charter system, we don't have to do that. We can provide remediation before and after school. We give teachers a stipend. The kids still have to show that they've mastered the curriculum, and they move on. The best teachers in classroom regardless of certification. I think earlier someone had talked about that. If you find a great mechanic who's got experience in the past, they'd walk away. We don't need to do that now. The part that I didn't hear was administration. One of the things that we're real focused on right now is fast-tracking top talent to the principalship. And right now, to say, hey, you need to go back and get a master's degree in ed leadership, and someone says, look, I have an MBA, or I went to law school, and you say, well, sorry, you can't be a principal in our school district. I find that hard to believe. So what we're doing is we're providing some ramps into the principalship in our district where we say, fine, we'll bring you on as an apprentice for 1 year. You'll be an assistant principal on assignment. We'll have a year of training, got to make sure you understand sort of how the things work, and then we'll hand you the keys and we'll move from there. So that's a little bit about that. Compensation system. Today we just kicked off with ERS, which is an organization helping us think through a compensation reform. By the year 2017, I have made a commitment to the Board of Education that we'll have a completely revised compensation system, one that really helps drive the best teachers from the marketplace into our school system. We hear everybody talking about the United States being behind on math and science. Yes, yet we still pay our teachers the same, whether you teach PE, art, music, elementary ed. We have a vacancy open right now that 625 people applied for an elementary ed position. We had a chemistry position in one of my highest performing schools, great suburban school. Nobody applied for it. What is the market? What's the signal we're hearing there? For $40,000, I can't compete with Georgia Power, with engineering firms for a chemistry or physics teacher. So our comp system is going to be changed in Fulton County. We're working on it now. The teachers will be involved in it. What I ask folks like you to do is stand beside us as the waves roll in. This is going to be tough and dirty work. Nobody wants to talk about this, but the truth is teaching different subjects and content experts is not the same. It's just not the same. So we're going to have to talk more about that, but that's another day. Social emotional supports. Again, thinking through how we provide wraparound services to our schools. We talked about the suspension rates that we have. We have a huge influx, a huge increase, of mental health issues in Fulton County right now. We do. One of our schools recently has had, to date, a high school by December had 18 students who had written notes or made attempts to commit suicide. 18 students. One of our high schools, just one. And so what I say to you is what's happening in the community, the level of violence that we see, the level of drugs, the level of chaos and destruction of families and churches, it spills over and it's reflected in our schools. So we've got to address this issue of mental health. Fulton County is no different. I think I heard a little bit before about some things that are going on here. We are partnering with local jurisdictions. I applaud the juvenile court for partnering with us. Communities and schools is doing a fantastic job with us, getting mentors into the schools. We're getting ready to do a partnership with Emory at one of our local elementary schools that has some medical issues as well. But who would have thought in 2013 public schools would be talking to state legislators and leaders in the state about things that aren't about public schools? Medical health issues are spilling into our schools. The charter system will allow us to continue to build relationships, authentic parental engagement. We believe that these things together with partnerships with local organizations will help us move our work forward. Our strategy is not just limited to what central office can cook up. The beauty of engaging parents and engaging others and creating this new innovation and this new energy is now multiplied over the entire district. I recruited a young man who's here with me today, Ken Zeff. He was the chief operating officer from Green Dot, which is a charter management organization, to help us build this, right? Because most of the people who work on my team haven't worked outside of public ed. And so Ken's really helping us think through how we build systems, as he likes to say, to get to the yes. Not, we can't do it because it's policy, we can't do it because there's a barrier. How do we get to yes? What is it that someone's telling us, and what can we do to get to the yes, which I love that. So in closing, what I'll share is this. Organization like Fulton County has to be able to provide two or three basic things as a central system. One is we have to create measures of accountability, which I like to call pressure, okay? Things like I've replaced 33 principals in 18 months and 23 out of the 30 executive staff member. Those are clear signals that there's only certain people who get to be part of the team, right? So really high bar. We've replaced more low-performing teachers in this last year than we have in several years combined. So as you raise the bar, people begin to get the message, and they also help you because they self-select. Removed 17 assistant principals because of poor performance. So those are things on the pressure side. The support side, you're never going to fire your way to Finland. Did you hear what I just said? We'll never do it. The market is just, it's not there. But what we can do is send clear message that the best teachers will be rewarded with great pay and can stay in the classroom and make an honorable pay. The second piece is that the middle of the pack will get the support they need to build their skills. We're working right now with Harvard on a project that I think is going to really revolutionize education. We are videotaping our master teachers and beginning to catalog the best teachers on certain subjects and certain standards, and they'll be available for teachers, other teachers, to use in their classrooms. So you might watch a 5-minute clip of the best physics teacher teaching a particular concept, no matter what school you're in Fulton County. And that kind of sharing and exchanging of ideas is happening right now in Fulton County. So I'll leave it at that. You can tell I'm excited about our work. I've provided you our strategic plan and a few talking points about what I just shared. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know we have lots of questions. Representative Dudgeon.
I'm very privileged to have a lot of the kids that go to Northview in my district, and I know everybody's excited up there in a very high-achieving school. And a lot of parents who are used to running organization and business and things like that. But you said something intrigued me about training these councils, because I think if you just throw a bunch of people in a room and say, you're running the school now, they're going to say, okay, now what do we do? So could you speak a little bit more to that, because I think that's a critical piece to making all this work.
Yep. I'm going to ask Ken to give a little bit of detail about what that looks like and how that's working.
Thank you, sir. You can tell I'm the new person here because I chose to sit behind the pole and wasn't able to see any.
Welcome to this room.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. Training is critical. We need to put our councils in a position to be successful, and the answer is not to slide the keys across the table to our leaders and say, we'll see you in a year. You better turn around the school. we've partnered with some community partners that the superintendent indicated, and it's really about a variety of training, but it's really about professionalizing the councils.
Exactly.
So it's about Robert's Rules of Order, not glamorous, but still critical. It's about transparency. It's about understanding school finance, which is not the most obvious thing to understand. Understand student assessment, because if you don't know what's not working at your school, then it's hard to know where to go. So we've made a tremendous investment in that, including as part of the Georgia Innovation Grant, getting executive coaches for our principals to actually partner with them as they can think through how to move their councils forward.
Excellent. Thank you.
Senator James.
Thank you very much, and hello.
Hello.
Glad to see my Fulton County superintendent here. I want to first of all applaud you for your innovative approach, and all of you, Dr. Ledbetter and Dr. Barrow as well. I know as a former teacher that you have to teach the whole child, and often you have to be creative, and it seems that all of your approaches are really working, and I like that. But I know that we just voted on a piece of legislation, voted to have charter schools under a new system. And you have charter schools under a school board, right? Will that change your systems?
So we're still allowed to authorize this. Our public school system is still allowed to authorize charters. In fact, we've changed our methodology. We've actually gone out and said, here are the kinds of charters we're looking for in Fulton County to meet the needs. Much like we're not getting the discipline thing right, we're going out to the marketplace and putting out an RFP saying, we need help. We're only graduating maybe, for example, 50, 60% of our African American males. Can you help us in this area?
Right.
So that won't change that.
Well, I'd like to know, I know that I think it was Dr. Ledbetter that said that he has three themes for schools.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have, I know we have magnet school programs and all that, and
Right.
that's probably the same kind of thing.
It's somewhat similar. They have a full district choice, if I'm not mistaken. We've got choice where there's capacity. Fulton County is still a very fast-growing school district, so some of the schools are closed for choice, some aren't. We do have magnets, which are an option. Tri-Cities, for example, has a performing arts magnet.
Right.
We have IB magnets. We're getting ready to expand more of the magnet piece because it's true. Kids want to choose something that fits with what they're interested in. But those councils could, in fact, say, once they're together, they could say, look, this community really wants technology, for example. The Alpharetta corridor there has a really high interest in technology. So it could be that school decides that that's where they want to invest their time, people, and money. They can do that. We're just not as far along.
Thank you, and keep up the good work. I hope that we can model everything after what all three of you are doing, rather than giving it to us a brand new system and a new form of government. So thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Satchler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, appreciate your being here today. Some exciting ideas you shared, and I appreciate your being willing to innovate in some of the ways you've described. Quick question and then a follow-up, which is my real question. What is the makeup of your governing boards right now? Where do they come from? Parents, faculty members, and so forth?
So it's parents, it's teachers, and it's one community member. They're elected. The principal does not have a vote on the governance council. He acts or she acts much like I do with my school board, which is, I run the district day to day. I'm the CEO of the district, but I have to bring certain things to the board for approval or disapproval, et cetera. So that's the way it's organized there.
I asked the question because I live in Cobb County and represent North Cobb, just a short drive from you all. And I don't say this to chafe in any way. I just raise this. It's similar to the question I asked to the Dublin superintendent. I'd gotten some feedback from Fulton that there was great excitement coming in about the charter system opportunity. Mm-hmm. Certainly there's a capacity building component. But if you think about, in reality, when you've got teachers who report to a principal, report up to a system, if you think about the dynamics of being able to make controversial decisions, being able to really assert a board's authority and independence relative to county policy, are teachers really in a position to do that? Are community members that may be selected through a process that picks people that are more system people as opposed to independent thinkers. I've gotten some feedback from folks in Fulton. They were very excited going in. They've not lost complete hope, but we're really hopeful that the parents will really wear the pants on those boards and have 5 of 7 votes and things like that.
Right. So, again, I think balance in any kind of governance is important, right? Because you can also, I could switch that around a little bit and tell you, you could have 3 or 4 very outspoken parents who decide they want this school to be an art school and focus because their kids are in band, for example, and the vast majority of the school really isn't on board with that. So I think balance is part of that. Look, at the end of the day, what we're charging these boards to do is to help govern and shape a direction for the school. We'll hold the principal accountable for making day-to-day operations, decisions around teacher performance and outcomes, and that's where the pressure comes in from the central office. Although it's decentralized, there's still accountability. At the end of the day, if we're not moving in the right direction, my board, the board that's elected in Fulton County, will remove me as superintendent. So there are checks and balances along there. If we believe that we're not getting the kind of parental engagement, we're always open to making changes on that. We haven't started, so I'm not sure where the feedback's coming from. We just had our elections, and they won't really be able to participate with this piece until they've been certified. And are they close to being certified? Next month. So we'll begin to move on to that process. And as I mentioned before, that spigot of authority is going to come on over time. That was the way we made our proposal to the state government. You don't want to just carte blanche open up the doors. I think that's dangerous. And as a parent who has kids in the district, I don't want this to become some big experiment on the way schools are run. So we're trying to temper that by having some checks and balances and really using a balanced approach.
We've got 2 more questions. Our time's getting short, but I want to recognize Chairman Coleman and then Senator Sims.
Thank you so much.
I will.
Thank you so much for being here again. I've met with you several times, and I am just thrilled at what you're doing, especially in that large district, showing it can be done by clusters and whatever, and I just appreciate the fine job. One question I want to ask you from here, from the DOE, Department of Education. What are you finding with us and them that are tying your hands you wish we'd leave you alone? Because we're talking about freedom, flexibility, turning you loose, allowing you to do these things. Where are you finding your biggest obstacle? Don't worry about hurting feelings. Just call it.
Well, I don't worry about hurting feelings.
I know you don't. That's why I like you.
But what I would say is this: we've been given authority to make decisions, so we're doing that.
Good.
And if there are issues and concerns, I'll just turn to the fact that we've got a document that everybody signed that we'd agreed to. So I don't know.
But if you get out here and see some other things you want to do, are you finding any roadblocks having to go back and get those freedoms? Like if you had not asked for suspender control, if you had not asked for seat time,
not yet.
Can you just do it? Have you found any problems yet?
Not yet.
Good. Is there anything you'd like to see us do in this new bill? We're talking about flexibility and accountability. You've heard about it. You've been involved in it. What scares you, or what do you think we need to do to make this bill the best?
I think the biggest thing that I would share with lawmakers is that when decisions are made, and they're made, sometimes they're made quickly, right? Because we got to get some bones around this. We want to frame it up. Is that there are sometimes unintended consequences, and what you'll see sometimes is fatigue from the field, meaning. Okay, so we were heading in this direction. Now we're heading in this direction. We used to have NCLB. Now we've got another waiver system. I just say let's be thoughtful about it. Let's start taking steps in the right direction. There is no silver bullet. There's just not. I think it's a blending, and that's the way we're approaching it. Charters play a role in our school district. They'll continue to play a role. Great charters who get great results, who are transparent and are spending their money wisely, the same way we would expect all of our other schools to do that. Our conversion charter schools play an important part. And now this new model with the charter system, I believe, as we move towards empowering parents, as the question was asked before, to make those tough decisions, I
hate to ask you this, but I want to ask you, Anita, do you think we should see that 180 school systems should move toward charter systems, or should there be some options of just flexibility without charter systems?
Look, there's Atlanta Metro, and then there's Georgia.
Right.
I can't speak for rural Georgia, South Georgia, East Georgia. I've not even been to all of those places yet. But what I can do is that I want Fulton County Schools to be a beacon for Atlanta Metro, that large urban suburban districts can provide more local control by providing
Good.
decision making to their schools. Because again, Cobb County is the same way. You've got real low performing schools, you got some in the middle, and then you have some very high ones. And a central office cannot provide the support they need to all of them. It's impossible.
Senator Sims.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm so encouraged, as I'm sure the audience is, by your presentations. Just a comment, or maybe a question too. The outsourcing of discipline, I thought it was a very novel idea, because what it does, it frees the classroom teacher, it frees the administration, and just gives you more time to concentrate on the academics, which is why we have school. Yeah. So I thought that was a really good idea. How do you do that?
So what we're doing right now is, before you'd get a 10-day suspension, you were on the street for 10 days. And if your mom and dad weren't home, who knows what you're doing. What the sheriff tells me is they wind up visiting his place. So what I'm saying is, we're going to provide in small pockets, because the organization that we've gone out to, we've said we don't want one centralized area. We want you to have maybe a storefront somewhere close to where our suspension rates are high, so that these kids aren't going to be left to their own. We'll have a virtual online opportunity for them to continue their education, and they won't lose school days, but they're not coming to school. We're going to still suspend kids. It's just you're not going to come to school. You're going to go to an off-site location to serve your time.
Great.
We do the same thing.
That's good.
It's academically focused, but we also have a counseling piece. They were put into this setting because of drug or alcohol use, or if there was another legal infraction. We try to address that so that doesn't keep them from getting to their educational goals. Ultimately, we'd love to see them work back into the regular setting. Sure. That's our ultimate goal. That's where what's happening with most of our kids. But it's been very effective for us. The model that we had was not working. It was one that we had created, and we'd see kids go there. They'd be out of the main school for a while. They'd come back, and then they'd have the same issue. None of those kids would graduate. Now most of our kids are.
Thank you very much.
To all three of you, I cannot thank y'all enough for making the investment of your time to come. Your innovation, your vision, your excitement about what you're doing. I think y'all are all role models of what all school districts in the state of Georgia ought to be aspiring to do. And I think you're a proof positive that it can be done if you've got the vision and the heart and the good management skills that it takes to number one, be brave enough to attempt it and be strong enough to follow through. I want to give y'all a round of applause. Thank y'all so much from the state of Georgia. This concludes our joint meeting. I think the House is going to convene their committee for just some short housekeeping issues.
Education Committee to order. It'll take us about 10 minutes. If everyone would just take their conversations out in the hall. I don't know about you, but that was a very, very good presentation. I enjoyed that very much. Very good. I have a quorum here. Say 3, 4. Yep, we have it. All right. At this time, I want to say to my committee what's left, and it's been tough. Our normal date for meeting will be on Tuesdays, because I appreciate the fine job the Speaker's office did of trying to schedule meeting times where there would be no conflicts. You realize these 2 information meetings were scheduled before the session started, so we did not know. That's why there has been a conflict on Wednesdays. Our normal meeting date is always on Tuesdays from 2 until 4, unless near the end of the session we have to have, call meetings to deal with special legislation. So that would be our normal day. And I failed at the last meeting to introduce some very important people I wanted to introduce themselves. Abby, you start with that, introduce yourself and stand up. Abby, I tell you, I don't know how I'd ever get along with that. And tell them what all you do. You run this place.
Hi, I'm Abby Wicker. I'm the policy analyst for education.
Just wonderful. She is just great. You can always find her working. All right, if you'll stand up there, Hillary, and tell them about you. This is our little intern this time.
My name is Hillary Nevat. I go to Georgia College and State University in Milledgeville, and I'm from Dalton, Georgia, and I am the intern for the education committee.
That's why Tom's smiling. So, all right. And you know the one that runs this committee. Stand up and tell them.
Everybody, I'm Courtney Gillum. I'm Representative Coleman's administrative assistant, and I pretty much do whatever he tells me to do.
She keeps it running. I don't know what I'd do without her. And I tell you, Betsy is not here today. Betsy is our legislative council member. She had so many other. She's upstairs working another meeting. But I tell you, we couldn't get along without Betsy. She's just fantastic. And if I left out anybody, Courtney, did I get everybody this time? I was so embarrassed last night. All right. At this time, I'll hear a report from our Committee on Academic Support. So if our chair would please give us a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Academic Support Committee met yesterday and recommend that House Bill 115 pass as amended and that House Bill 116 also pass.
Okay, so why don't we take up, let's take up House Bill 115. Is that the one that was not amended?
115 was amended, but we have a
Let's take up 115 then as amended, if you would. All right. And our author is here, Chairman Tom Dixon. So, Tom, you want to speak there, or you want to go up to the podium? You can have any what you want. Just come up there where we can have you. We can watch you. All right.
Okay, we are operating from LC 334983S.
Yes, sir. Everyone have a copy.
The purpose of this bill is to make some changes in the process when we have a local Board of Education who has been notified that their system is placed on the level of accreditation immediately preceding loss of accreditation. If you're looking at the bill itself, if you look on the first page on lines 15, 16, this is where we changed the language a little bit in the subcommittee. This is the trigger that gets the process going with the state board, and this bill now makes the local Board of Education responsible for notifying the state board when they have received their notice from the accrediting agency. That's what is done on line 15. And then the bill or the law mandates that the State Board of Education conduct a hearing currently in not less than 10 days nor more than 30 days. This will change that to not more than 90 days. That is for the benefit of the local systems to give them more time to prepare and be ready for the hearing. And beginning on line 19, you see some changes. The underlined portion, the majority of the board members of the local Board of Education can petition the State Board for a continuance of the hearing, and the state board has it's within their discretion then to allow that. Following that, it has language which says that the State Board of Education hears the hearing will take place in the public view, but they are allowed then to go into what we would call executive session, a private meeting, to have their deliberations. And then they would come out of that and back into a public meeting to have the vote. That also was a small change to bring the vote out in the public. On the second page of the bill, you see lines 32 through 43 are struck. That was language that was date specific and is no longer needed. And then on the third page, you have a little bit that's struck and added in some language to try to take care of situations similar to what has occurred in DeKalb County, where you have a system that's been notified that they are going to be a part of this process, and subsequent to that, you have one or more board members who are elected to that board, who obviously then had no part in getting them to where they were, and so they would not be a part of the process. They would not be eligible to be removed by the governor. Those are the changes in the bill, and if there are questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I would appreciate your support for a do pass recommendation.
All right. We have a question, if you don't mind taking them. All right, Representative Lindsay.
Yeah, just a couple quick questions, and I'm a co-sponsor of the bill, so obviously I like it. I just want to make sure that the folks understand. The extending the time period from 30 to 90 days, that's at the discretion of the state school board. The local school board can't delay the hearing.
Right. But my understanding, and from conversations with state board members, is that their desire is for to create a situation which will allow a local board to have time to remediate and make changes. And so I think the option would be probably to give them all the time they can.
And I agree, but you know, they're going.
But it is the state board's discretion.
Sometimes the state board's going to have to act quickly. Sometimes they're going to want to delay so they can work it out. But that's something we're basically giving the state school board more flexibility.
Right, state board's discretion.
In regards to the section at the end, lines 74 through 77. Basically, if I understand what we're doing here, and I want to make sure folks understand, for instance, I think I'm using purely hypothetically here, folks. I'm not predetermining anything. But DeKalb, for instance, you've got two new members coming on. And basically, what this does is, while the state school board may and the governor might have jurisdiction to take off the other ones who were on last year, the two that just got elected will get a chance to continue to serve.
Correct.
Yeah. I just want.
Are there any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. I have do pass as amended. Do I have a second? All right. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Okay. It's passed. All right. The next bill is Chairman Dixon is House Bill 116.
And here we're operating from LC 334792. This particular bill deals with a situation. The State Board of Education has been named trustee for two pots of money that would have been left to accomplish specific purposes. One of them being the Smoky Powell Trust, which was left by a gentleman who had vision problems, and he provided funds that are designated to provide low light yield devices to assist students who have a problem related to their vision. The other is the money that remains from the Smarter Than a Fifth Grader victory that brought some money into the state. There's about $500,000 of that the state board is the trustee for. In order to most efficiently have that money dealt with, the state board would like to transfer those funds into the Education Foundation. Now, this does not change any of the uses that the money goes for. That's all taken care of in the trust documents, and the state board will still administer those and the disbursement of them. But for investment purposes, it makes sense to have it be a part of the education fund. So the bill does two things. One, it authorizes the state board to put the money in there, and then it also authorizes the education fund to handle those investments. If there are any questions. Yes, sir.
Well, once again, just to make sure folks understand why, basically by doing this, we're lowering the administrative costs.
Right.
And we're therefore freeing up more money to be used for the purpose in which the trust was set up.
Maximize the return.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Any other questions? I have none. Do I have a motion? I have a motion to pass. Do I have a second? All in favor, aye. Opposed, like sign. It passes. You may go there. We'll send them to rules, tomorrow? Courtney, I guess it's too late tonight. No, it's not. We'll get them to the house, so you can go. Already adjourned, so tomorrow, so anytime after.
I'll go fill out the paperwork at rules.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Remember now, we're hearing tomorrow. Let's see. Valerie, your committee, what are you hearing tomorrow? All right. All right. Parent troop. All right, 2 o'clock. So I would encourage all of you to please attend, and any of these subcommittee meetings, please attend. That way, when it comes to full committee, you'll have the information. And one thing I want to inform our audience, I hope you all know this, how we operate. all discussion and all questions take part in subcommittees. So if you have any questions, any comments, be sure to come to the subcommittees. That's where you have your questions answered. We amend bills, you talk about it, and she'll give you all the time you need to talk about them, discuss them. When we get to full committee, the only people who can ask questions or talk are committee members, and the only substitutions or amendments that can be done are from the committee members at the full committee. Any questions? Okay. Thank you. We adjourn. Thank you.